Welcome to another episode of The Shift with Elena Agar. In this episode, I talk with Michael from Think Unbroken, and he shares his stories of just ups and downs that he's had in his life, but not just that, and some severe trauma. And so today he helps individuals overcome that trauma and move forward with their lives, regardless of what has been. And he is one of the top kind of examples of where you can be and where can you actually go. He's been homeless by the age of 10. He was addicted to drugs by the age of 12 and an alcoholic by the age of 19. And he has suffered various abuses, health issues, and a number of other factors that that could have really steered him in all the wrong ways. But he found his way, overcame the trauma, is now very successful today and helping other people do the same. I love the conversation because he kept it real. There's no bullshit. There's no sugarcoating. It's just him being as authentic as he is. And I appreciate it. And I think you will too. Enjoy. Michael, welcome to the Shift podcast.
Thanks. Excited to be here with you.
So Shift is all about different shifts, but particularly in this conversation, we're going to be talking about mindset shifts. And that is something you really talk about in the work that you do. So I want to kick this conversation off in your kind of understanding of why is the mindset so important to us as people in general?
Well, your beliefs are everything. I mean, you say you can or you can't, it'll be true. You know, and you hear that kind of frequently across the board in personal development, right? And I think there's a big misnomer in the conversation about mindset because I don't think it's articulated well. And what I mean by that, there's a lot of people who are like talking about mindset, but they don't ever tell you what it means. And it's like, how do we help people if we don't define at its core what it means? It's like one of the things that I've always been fascinated with is understanding where the framework for words come from. And mindset, if you like really think about it, it's like this. What you think becomes what you speak become your actions, and your actions become your reality. And that's all based and congealed within a belief system that, to be honest with you, for pretty much every human ever, is based on the sum total of all of their experiences through childhood up and through today. And it's like, if you, like me, like I grew up in the hood. I grew up with a drug addict, alcoholic mother, an abusive stepfather. I was homeless as a kid. I was a drug addict when I was 12. I got kicked out of high school. You know, I don't have a high school diploma. And yet, by the time that I was 25, I made $1 million working for a Fortune 10 company, right? Which is almost impossible, like a 0.0001% chance that could even happen. But I believed I could, right? I believed that somewhere in this thing called life, I could make it happen. And I think that people just get stuck in this idea of, they're like, my mindset's not right. I think mindset is really beneficial for the jumping off point. And it's like, you have to, like, at least at minimum believe it's viable. But beyond that, it's about, you got to put in a shit ton of work. And that carries more weight than mindset. Because people, last night, actually, I love that you asked me this question to start with. So I coach 2 groups every single Monday night with tons and tons of people. And in one of the groups, one of the people asked me last night, they said, what do you do when you don't feel like doing something, but you know you need to do it? And my answer to that was like, you fucking do it. You don't negotiate with yourself. And those who negotiate with themselves will blame it on their mindset and be like, I don't feel like it. And look, there's times where you're sick or you're injured, whatever. Sure, fine. Like, let's be realistic about this. We're not robots, we're humans. Outside of those moments, like, it really comes down to one of 2 things why you don't do the thing that you know you need to do just because you don't feel like it. Reason 1, you actually don't want the thing. Like, you actually don't want what's on the other side of whatever you're lying to yourself about in your head, right? Because so many people are like, I want to build a business and I want to go take this trip, or I want to leave this relationship, but they don't take the action, right? They're just convincing themselves that they want it. And then B, or 2, the other side of it is that actually, whether consciously or subconsciously, they're sabotaging themselves. They're choosing, like, you're making, and I would argue, honestly, it's more conscientious just based on the fact that you can even frame the question of, why am I not doing the thing I know I need to do because I don't feel like it? And it's like, so now you're consciously choosing to fuck your life up. It's like, okay, but well, why? Well, it's the indoctrination of growing up and being told, you're not good enough, it's never going to work, you're a loser, you suck, like all of the things. And like everybody, like I don't know anybody who came out of childhood who doesn't have issues,
Mm.
right? Everybody dealt with something, whether it was your
Oh, yeah.
parents, your community, your teachers, your peers, getting bullied, wearing the wrong clothes, having an allergy, like whatever, like everybody went through something. And
Mm.
so it's like, okay, if you can address that and assess it, now you can create the space for moving through it. But most people will leverage the worst thing that ever happened to them as the reason why they can't and use that as justification for why their life sucks.
Mm.
And then they're the victim. And they're like,
Mm.
oh man, I can't seem to make it in my career. And Bill keeps getting promoted over me. And it's like, yeah, but are you really showing up? Are you
Mm.
really doing what is required? And I think so much of this mindset conversation is missing the cornerstone element that success isn't about doing what you want. Success is about doing what you have to do.
Mm. You've mentioned a couple of different really interesting points. I want to go back to the point where you were talking about that all these different experiences would shape us, right? And kind of create that mindset. Maybe you're familiar with the work of Professor Sapolsky. He's like a neurobiologist, or I forget exactly his title, but he's a scientist out of Stanford, I believe. And he was talking about the fact that who we are, like he talks about behavior change a lot in humans. And he said who we are is so embedded not only in our experiences, but even our ancestors and the land that we come from, and etc. And I was watching something, you were talking about it on your, I think one of your interviews, and you were talking about how your upbringing and your cultural background, and you're like, I have a lot of trauma in general, just in the family line, right? So how much do you think, you know, how much, I mean, that's how complex this behavior change is for us, right? So do you want to talk a little bit about that?
Yeah, look, you can't escape it, right?
Mm.
Like it is a part of who you are. I mean, from the pigment of your skin to your accent, like everything is based on your lineage. And
Mm.
generationally, there's so much about who we are that even it's tied into our DNA. I mean, you're literally created by the DNA of your parents, who were created by the DNA of their parents, leading back to the beginning of time, whenever this whole thing began.
Mm.
And so to say that you're somehow not impacted by the very thing that makes you exist is kind of stupid, right? If you really look at it. And so it's about acknowledging and looking at it. Okay, if my mom's a drug addict, alcoholic, manic depressive, bipolar, suicidal person, and my father, who I've never met, so I have no idea about his background, but I know that in my family there's mental disease, right? There's alcoholism, there's drug addiction, there's obesity, there's I mean, hell, half my family's been to jail. I got family in prison for life, literally right
Mm.
now. And it's like, okay, let's look at my life at 26 years old. So I'm 26 and I'm 350 pounds. I'm smoking 2 packs a day. I'm drinking myself to sleep. I've made almost $1 million, but I'm $50,000 in debt. My car gets repoed. My girlfriend breaks up with me because I was cheating on her. And my little brother tells me, never talk to me again. You're not my brother.
Mm.
And it's like I was living into the exact things that were of my family's persuasion: overweight, drinking, alcohol, smoking, drugs, womanizing, like all these things. And there's that element of it, right? So like energetically and genetically it's in me. Then there's the element of it where you can bring in the conversation about nature versus nurture. Well, look
Mm.
at the community I grew up in. I went to one of the worst high schools in America. In 2004, the year I got kicked out of high school again for the third time, my school was listed as what's called a dropout factory by Harris Polls, meaning it's one of the worst schools in America with one of the lowest graduation and continuation rates. That school since has been defunded and closed. It was that bad. They literally couldn't get kids through the system. I'm one of those kids. All right, cool. So I'm breaking in houses. I'm stealing cars. I'm hurting people. I'm getting shot at. I get expelled from school for fighting. I get expelled from school for selling drugs. I get expelled from school, like kicked out. And they like put me in last chance programs. And then I still like, okay, cool. So now you have this combination of both nature and nurture working either for you or against you. But here's like looking at it from the positive aspect, it's like, cool. I learned how to hustle. I learned how to sell. I learned how to figure shit out. I learned how to, when it's really, really difficult, to overcome. I learned how to take better care of myself, to put my health a priority, to work on my mental health. All of those things transpired to being a leader in the mental health space, to running
Mm-hmm.
multiple seven-figure businesses, to being able to speak on the biggest stages in the world, have like giant podcasts, written multiple books, one of them being a bestseller. Like all of that comes from what I come from. And it's like, it's the leverage that we either take or don't take that creates who we are. And so, yes, you can look at my story and be like, man, this is insane. This guy was able to do this. He must be special. He must like really have the thing. Right. And people will compare me to Tony Robbins, and I hear it all the time. And guys like Zig Ziglar and people like Marie Forleo, and they're like, you're next. And I'm like, that's fine, but I'm just living my life in
Mm-hmm.
accordance with who I want to be based on the goals that I've set, in alignment with my mission, my vision, my values, my personal boundaries, and my willingness to show up every day. And so, I know as many people who grew up from nothing who are millionaires, to people who grew up in middle class who are millionaires, to people who had everything who are dirt poor,
Mm-hmm.
right? And drug addicts and have nothing. And so it's like it really comes down to your ability to decipher the life that you want to have, and then put in the effort to create it. And it's not easy. It's not none of it's simple, but it really comes down to, if you can create clarity about what you want and just take a disgusting amount of action towards that, over 10 years, you'll get what you want, or maybe
Mm-hmm.
20, or maybe 30, right? And I think that's the thing that people have to hold on to. My life didn't become different. I didn't become who I am today to be able to help thousands of people every year, and millions of downloads on a podcast, and all these
Mm-hmm.
books sold, and all these stages. That didn't happen overnight, right? And so it's really about recognizing that you have to have some patience and grace in this process.
Mm-hmm. And what I appreciate very much about the work that you do and kind of what you're putting out there is this fact of like, wonderful, these things have happened, but then like let's focus on solutions. Like how we actually going to get over these things? Because I think
Hmm.
there's a lot of, at least in just in the world of like psychology and some parts of therapy, where it's like going back to resolve that challenge. But sometimes like, and I'm curious what you think of it as a kind of the trauma coach, but sometimes maybe it's just recognizing it and kind of moving on from it, maybe awareness and then moving forward, because I feel like it doesn't do much benefit to you to sit there. And I think that's what a lot of people do. We sit in our past and we try to figure things out back there, but really we just need to maybe acknowledge it and then move forward. So just from you, obviously professional experience, like what do you think about that? Because that's what I
Yeah,
feel from you.
Yeah, I think it's a little bit of both, right?
Mm-hmm.
Because I mean, I was in such a dark place when I got serious about this journey, that like I needed desperately just therapy and guidance, right?
Mm-hmm.
But I say this to people all the time. If I knew what I knew now then, I would have hired a coach before I hired a therapist, because I needed to create behavioral changes. I needed to take action in a different direction. And to be honest, the first kind of 4 years of this journey, from like 26 to 30, like when I got serious about healing, and I'm like, dude, you're in debt, and your brother hates you, and your girlfriend left you, and all that. I'm like, okay, cool. Therapy, I just kind of felt like I was spinning my wheels for a while, right?
Mm-hmm.
And nothing was progressing forward. And so the element of like the healing journey that I think is incredibly beneficial is like understanding we're analytical. Like, if you really think about it, like as human beings, we are analytical creatures, meaning that if you can create causation and correlation, rhyme and reason around the things that happen and occur in our life, we can create a framework and a game plan for navigating it, being solution oriented and looking for opportunities, right? But the only way that that actually works first is we have to be able to look at objectively, like really what is going on in our life and how we got to where we are. That's the benefit of therapy, right? I sat and I've done every modality like you can imagine. Like I was actually just talking to someone last night, and the amount of money that I've spent on my own mental health and personal development and in and outside of business, like I could have bought like 10 houses.
Mhm.
you know, and it's cost me a lifetime to be able to get this. But it all started with just being able to sit and have someone reflect to me why potentially I did the things that I did, why I had abandonment issues, why I was codependent, why I was, sitting in this place of anger, right? And that was
Mhm.
really helpful. But what happens is people get stuck there and they go, I'm angry because of what happened then.
Mm.
And you're like, how does that help you?
Mm.
Like how does being closed down and emotionally a recluse and sabotaging your life and destroying your money and destroying your friendships and your relationships and having nothing to show for all the effort that you put in, how does that help you just because you got fucked up as a kid?
Mm.
It doesn't. But people leverage that because there's something about the human experience where we just love to suffer. And I
Mm.
don't know why. And it's not until you move through whatever your inevitable rock bottom is that things change. And I've had the honor of like having this conversation like with you, with people like Dr. Mariel Bouquet and Dr. Caroline Leaf and Dr. Gabor Mata, like literally the smartest minds in trauma in the world, and they all agree with me.
Mhm.
And I
Mhm.
probably have a little bit of one up on them because sure, do I have a PhD? No, but I lived this,
Right.
right? And then on the other side of it, it's like, cool, if you can acknowledge it, you talked about getting this place of letting it go. What I often think about is like if I gave you a backpack full of bricks and it's all the bullshit of your life that's holding you back, and you had to like carry this backpack with you everywhere you went, like how long are you going to carry that backpack with you?
Mm.
And at some point, it's the identity shift that happens that creates the real change in you. Because on this side of who it is that you want to become is a gap. And that's where you're at today on the other side of the gap, sitting here and you're like, I believe I can be this person over here. Right. But you got to close that gap. The only way you close that gap is through action. You
Mm.
will not. I look, and I have had so many people try to cancel me over what I'm about to say. I do not believe that you are going to therapy yourself out of this, meditate yourself out of this, or journal yourself out of this. You're not going to yoga this. You're not going to Reiki this. None of the mindset shit, even the stuff I teach, is going to work. None of it to close
Mhm.
the gap to become the person that you want to become. The only way you become the person you want to become is massive action.
Mhm.
You have to do the things that terrify you, that move you in the direction of the unknown.
Mhm.
But what people don't understand is that it's an autonomic response that we have to stressors of the unknown to revert to self-soothing behavioral patterns as a parameter that creates safety. Like how crazy is it? Like think about this for a second.
Mm.
Growing up, the most dangerous thing that I could do was to be honest. And I
Mm.
literally mean that. The fastest way for my stepdad to throw me through a wall would be telling the truth. Hey, how'd you get those bruises on your arm? Oh, football. Why aren't you eating at school? Oh, my mom was too, she had to go to work early. She couldn't pack the lunch. Why do you have straight F's? Oh, well, because when I go home, I'm not saying that I don't have electricity. I'm like, we got a lot of stuff happening. I'm working these jobs. And it's like you make up all these things to keep yourself safe, and that serves you until it doesn't. And then you're an adult and you're looking at your life and you're like, why is my life a fucking disaster? Because you're a liar. But you don't know why you're a liar until you sit and you do the work and you're able to
Mm.
analyze it. And now that you sit and you do the work and you analyze it, the only way you become not a liar and become a person of honesty is the other side of this coin, in which you take action. And you
Yeah.
take that action, and on a long enough timeline, you become the person you're capable of being. But it's difficult and it's uncomfortable and it hurts and it sucks. And you're going to pay a lot of prices on the way up. And what happens is you're reframing your understanding of what you're capable of being and becoming by the actions and the courses of the measurements that you're taking to become that person. While understanding one pivotal thing that keeps most people stuck in this journey is that the second they're faced with the discomfort, the brain's response is to survive, because that's really the only thing the brain is good for. And so
Mhm.
it will do anything possible to not feel that discomfort. And so it's like, to answer your question, it's like you want to let it go, you want to move through it, you want to heal. You got to have causation and correlation, but ultimately it's action that creates the change.
Mm. And to your point, it's I think what gets people in that mindset of not wanting to make the change, because it's the difficult part, as you said, and it's painful, and a lot of it is fear. And I imagine that people, you know, even like yourself, I'm sure you had to not only change your mindset, but also your environment and everything you knew had to change,
Oh,
because you
for
can't,
sure.
you know. So, and I think that's the difficult part for people. I mean, I do talent development organizations, and even when you're talking about career change for people, they feel like it's a big thing, even though it's a positive, it should be exciting. But I can only imagine how scary, you know, and how quickly you go into like, okay, victimhood, scarcity mindset, and just it's easier to blame somebody outside. So I'm just curious, like, and I guess for you, like, you had to go through, you know, you had to really feel it, because you lost a lot of things at the time when you're like, I need to make a change. And but some people, even when they feel it, they don't make a change, and they just continue to live their life in that, you know, scarcity mindset, that miserable lifestyle that you know, that's ultimately was created. But I'm curious, like, have you figured out, like, what is it that helps some people say, okay, shit, I need to make a change, but then there are other people that just continue to live in that same way? Like, is
Yeah.
there?
Let me ask you, where did you grow up?
I grew up in Russia.
Where do you live now?
I live in DC area now.
Okay. Yeah, that's a big change, right?
Mm-hmm.
When I'm with my clients, you know, when I share this, I grew up in Indianapolis. I grew up in the hood, growing up all over that place. It was a fucking nightmare. I've lived in 20 countries. I've traveled this whole world. When I was like 12 or 13.
Mm-hmm.
I'm at my grandma's house, and we're watching Anthony Bourdain on his very first television show, a chef's tour. And I'm sitting here, I'm watching this dude like travel the world. And it's like, looks like amazing. Cause I'm in the hood. I've never been on an airplane. I never left the city. Like, we don't have any money. Like that's so far from my reality. It's not even funny. And I'm looking at my grandma, and she's sitting in this rocking chair. She's rocking back and forth. She's smoking a cigarette and drinking a Pabst Blue Ribbon and playing this little digital arcade game of poker, right? This is like 35 years ago or something,
Mm-hmm.
25 years ago, excuse me. And I look at her, I go, one day I'm going to travel the world like that guy. And you know what she tells me? She goes, I wouldn't do that if I were you. It's dangerous. My grandma's never been on a fucking airplane in her life. And I keep her picture in my passport as a reminder that people, even the ones that love you, will try to stop you and
Mm-hmm.
try to tell you to stay where you are, that you are safe no matter what, that you're perfectly good the way you are, and you're not. And that's the hard part about this conversation of mental health, because everyone is a proponent of love yourself, but no one's a proponent of do what it takes to love yourself.
Mm-hmm.
Right. And do what it takes to love yourself is packing up and moving, leaving the city you grew up in, going for the adventure, pulling yourself out of where you are to go to where you want to be.
Mm-hmm.
And the hard part about it is like there are probably a solid, and I'm raising the number. It didn't used to be this high, but the more I do this work, heading into almost 8 years in this business, the higher I need to make the number. I used to say that there's about 3 to 5% of people whose lives will never be different. And now I'm going to tell you it's 20%,
Mm-hmm.
because they don't want it bad enough, or they're so shaped by their childhood and the indoctrination and the enmeshment, or the fear, whatever it is. Because it's like, to me, there's almost no excuse anymore. Right. And look, everybody has a thing. And I'm not trying to be like, yo, if you have this, like, you figure your thing out, right? We all know this.
Right.
But I was set up for complete failure. Like, there's no way I should be here with you right now. Like, almost none. It's almost impossible. And I'm not, again, I'll point to, I'm not special. I just do one thing really, 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 really well. I go get what I want. And that's the thing that people have to leverage. You know, it's funny because I'll coach people who they have amazing jobs. They're CEOs at companies we know. They are doctors, they're lawyers, they're people who, like, they are well to do, and they're miserable
Mm-hmm.
because they're doing what everyone else tells them to do all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And then I sit with them and I go, you know, you're going to die, right? And you know, you're going to die with regret because you're scared. And I'm like, good, you should be scared, because that means you're going in the right direction. Because if you knew it was going to work out, where's the thrill in it? Where's the excitement of human life? Like, when I got on an airplane with a one-way ticket to Thailand, like, I didn't know, I was like terrified. I didn't even know what I was doing. I don't speak Thai. I definitely don't read it. Right. And I was like, fuck it. because my grandma said it was scary out here and never to do it. And so
Hmm.
sometimes it's like, maybe you need to like operate with a little bit of a chip on your shoulder,
Hmm.
right? There's something interesting about like recognizing your strengths. Like
Hmm.
I know one of my strengths is stubbornness, right? I also know that it's also a flaw and a weakness and a character trait that I'm always working on being better at. But it's like you have to acknowledge who you are and your true self. And in that acknowledgement, for some people, that 20%, you have got to acknowledge that your life is forever going to suck because you're a coward.
Hmm.
And what's going to happen because of your lack of decision making is that when you die, the last words out of your mouth are going to be regret. And that's a life unlived. And it's just simply like, if you can just look at it, why can't you have the thing that you want to have? Like, why not? Now, look, let's be realistic. If you're 5 foot tall, you're probably not making it in the NBA, right? If you think you're going to be a billionaire, you're probably not, and that's
Hmm.
okay. But prove me wrong. Be like, shut up, dude, right? Because this isn't my life. I'm just looking at this from an outside observer. But I remember when I was young, I was like, I'm gonna write books one day. The first
Hmm.
time I ever wrote a book, this is hilarious. I'm like 9 years old. I saw this Eddie Murphy movie called Vampire in Brooklyn. And it's a romantic comedy about Eddie Murphy as a vampire in Brooklyn. It's fucking hilarious. It's so dumb, but I loved it. And I was like, oh my God, I love this. I'm gonna write a book. And at like 9 or 10 years old, I wrote a book about a vampire as a romantic movie. And like it was like whatever, a 9 year old, it was like 9 pages long and I'm exhausted, right? But I'm like, it's
Yeah.
right. My mom finds it and my mom tears it up.
Mm.
My mom's super religious zealot, even though she's a drug addict and alcoholic, and she's like, don't bring that devil stuff in this house, blah blah blah. She said, don't write, do not do this, don't ever do it again. And now I've written multiple books. And it's like sometimes it's really about, you talk about before we recorded, you're talking about like so many people have to get out of their own way. And it's like you got to recognize, like, I don't think it's always that simple. Sometimes your mom's in your way.
Yeah.
And it's like, what are you going to do about it? Because if you don't do something about it, you don't get to complain. And that's the thing people don't want to hear. That's the thing people get pissed off at me because I'm like, you want to be a victim? Good. Go over there and do it. Do it away from me because I don't
Mm.
want to hear it. Because you have every opportunity in the fucking world to go do something amazing. And
Hmm.
if you're not, that's on you. It's not on anybody else anymore. Look, 20 years ago, even I would have looked at him like, yeah, you're right, man. It's really hard out here. But you got access to the internet. You got access to more education than ever in history. You got access to, couch surfing. I have a friend who built a yoga company worth multiple seven figures who was dead broke when she started it, and she was couch surfing, trying to build an online business, couch surfing, staying with strangers with no money. And now she's arguably one of the most famous yoga instructors in the world. And it's like, okay, cool. Why can't you do it too? Because you're scared. Okay, great. Acknowledge it. You're scared. Now make a decision. And if you're unwilling to make the decision that moves you towards whatever it is that you want, you just have to shut up. And that's
Hmm.
the thing people don't want to hear, but it's just the truth.
Hmm. These kind of conversations is why I even started this whole podcast. And I told you, like, I've kind of shifted towards that ownership because I think that's what's missing. And I've been in talent development for over a decade in different roles. And I see this day to day with people in organizations that are, for whatever reason, trying to change, trying to move up or sideways or whatever it may be. And I still see that there's this, waiting for an external person to, like a manager, to promote you, waiting for your boss to notice you, waiting for a recruiter to call you, and not taking that ownership. And I think, so the things you're talking about, particularly like the time that it takes, right? Like for you, you're like, it didn't happen overnight. And I think with the new generation coming in, I see this prevalently in them and the young talent and organizations, because everybody's in such a hurry and they don't want to do the hard stuff, and they just want to skip all the hard stuff, and they want to do it, they want to just get to where they want to go really fast. And so I think thinking about it as like, this is a lifelong kind of thing, but also there's things you can do consistently that will take you to that next milestone and next milestone and next milestone.
Yeah.
So so
And it's about also like, so on the back of my phone are
mhm.
all of my goals. Like if you look, you probably can't see them, but like on the
That's
back
so
of
fun.
this
Yeah.
phone, I see them every single day.
Mm.
Some of these, like I read them and I go, this is probably impossible. And that's why it's on there.
Yeah, I love that.
Because it's like that gives me something to move towards, right? And it's interesting to me that people they're you do need the easy goals. You need the
Mm-hmm.
win,
Right.
right? You need the I got out of bed and brushed my teeth today. That's where I started this whole journey. Like I'm not joking. 25 heading into 26 years old at a complete rock bottom and standstill in my life over a decade ago. It started with I'm gonna go brush my fucking teeth.
Mm-hmm.
Really? And now it's like be a 10-time New York Times best-selling author,
Mm-hmm.
right? And I'm not saying that will happen, but I'm in the pursuit of it.
Mm-hmm.
And so you need to recognize that it's not just about these big grandiose goals that are going to set you up for success, but so much of it is in the micro. Like how can you be successful today? And to your point about people waiting, especially in corporate, look, I worked for a Fortune 10 company at 20 years old with no high school diploma. Like people don't do that. But I was like,
Mm-hmm.
I'm going to do it because I found a window to make $1 million, right? The goal was 100 grand a year. I didn't realize I'd be able to far surpass that.
Mm-hmm.
And what I saw in even that environment, it was so crazy how miserable people were at that
Oh yeah.
job. Where the parking lot, I mean, this is like 2006 to 2011. The parking lot was Cadillac, Audi, BMW, Mercedes Benz,
Mm-hmm.
and we're all in our early 20s and early 30s, but the people who were on the other side of that age gap who were 50 plus, they were miserable. They
Mm-hmm.
hated their life. They're banking, they're driving a fucking $100,000 car and they hate it. I'm like, quit.
Mm-hmm.
I did. And I went and started a business and I suffered for 2 years making nothing. Right. And it's just like you have to be willing to go for it. And this is it's hard because like I'm not saying anything people haven't heard before, but what I often think about is okay, if I go for it and it doesn't work and I'm homeless again, will I survive? Yeah, I was homeless before. I literally ate out of trash cans as a kid. Business didn't work. Okay, so try it again.
Mm-hmm.
Try it again. Try it again. Promotion didn't happen. One, the truth is you may not be talented enough, right?
Mm-hmm.
Two, you may be in the wrong vehicle. You might need to go to another company. Three, and goes to the old Steve Martin quote, be so good people can't ignore you,
Mm-hmm.
right? And so it's like, are you controlling all the variables or are you blaming your boss? I don't think my
Mm-hmm.
boss likes me. I promise you, your boss is not trying to sabotage you. Your boss gives two shit about you. They have
Yeah.
enough stuff to worry about,
Facts.
right? And it's like people get caught up in that and they're like, my job doesn't respect me. It's like, who said that was part of it? Your
Right.
job doesn't have to put flowers on your desk every single day, but if you hate it, go do it better and start your own company,
Mm-hmm.
right?
Yeah. Listen, I
But
see that. Yeah. Sorry. Go ahead. Go ahead.
no, no, I was just going to say, and I'm not trying to be on a soapbox about this. I'm just saying it's the reality. I've worked in this at 18 years old. I had 52 people under me. I was a manager at a Wendy's,
Mm-hmm.
and I worked with 15-year-olds and 55-year-olds. And I can promise you, I never had the emotional energy to be like, man, I'm going to really make your day bad.
Yeah.
Right. I'm not saying those people don't exist because they do,
Yeah.
but
Yeah.
I
They
mean,
do.
it's like
Yeah.
1%.
Right.
So if your life isn't what you want it to be, it's your fault.
Mm-hmm.
Sorry.
Listen, yeah, it's facts, and I don't think it's I do think what you're saying is like yeah, people have heard it before, but from the perspective that you're coming from, I think that's where it's powerful, and I think we can all use a reminder continuously about these things, and I think a big part of it as well is just then I'm curious what you think. So two parts to this. One, with the young generations coming in again because I see this a lot, and it's like
Mhm.
everybody's so offended by everything and you can't say this, you can't say that, and as a manager in an organization and working with managers, it's almost like, well, don't push them too much. So it's like it's almost like as a society we have at some point stopped expecting high performance, and generally speaking, like
Mm.
it's only in certain, and I think high performance is good for many of us. I think having people that push you and not make you just, you know what I'm saying? So I think that's the softness. I don't know if it's the softness is the word, but it's almost like it's a little bit soft out there because everybody's so
Yeah,
afraid to, I don't know, offend, or I
I
don't know.
I think that softness is fine. I don't think you have to roll with an iron fist. You ask anybody who works with me, I'm the most hands-off leader ever.
Mm,
I'm like, just do your damn job.
yeah.
That's it. And then do what is expected. I think the thing that we have lacked tremendously, and this is the price that we're paying for giving kids participation ribbons 20 years ago.
Yeah.
You're really seeing it come to fruition now,
Yeah.
because I'll even give you a short story. I won't say what company, but I had somebody come into my team, one of my teams, and they had a specific role. They were young, they were out of college. And one night they sent me, look, we're a small organization and everybody wears multiple hats. I lead the companies, they wear multiple hats. That's how it goes, right? We're small. We're like out here in the war. And I get a text from this, I text this person. And I go, hey, I need you to do this thing for me real quick and send it over as soon as possible. They replied to me, oh, it's 5 o'clock. I actually don't work after 5 o'clock. And I picked up the phone and I called them and I fired them on the spot.
Mm-hmm.
And that's not to be an asshole, but that's because in the company culture that I've created is like, we got to go to war. I
Mm-hmm.
got to know that at 5 o'clock, if I need something that's going to keep the business afloat, that you have an ability to go and do that'll take you 3 minutes, but will take me 3 hours. And I'm not texting you at midnight. I'm not a
Right.
psycho. It's
Yeah.
fucking 5 o'clock. And that's your response to me. You're gone because you don't fit the company culture.
Mm.
One of the things that I do when I interview people is I ask them, I say, when is the last time you got offended?
Mm.
Because I'm coming at you straight as an arrow, and
Yeah.
I'm gonna come at you for real. And it's not, I'm never gonna sit across from you and be like, you're an asshole and you suck at your job, but I'm gonna come at you and be like, why did you do this?
Yeah.
Why is it that you're not able to do the thing that we're paying you to do? And if you crumble under that, you don't fit the culture.
Mm-hmm.
Standards and expectations have fallen tremendously. I mean, look at the way, and I know we're running out of time, but it's like, look at the way we date. Look at the way we communicate with each other. Look at the way the cleanliness of our homes, our bodies, who it is that we are. Like, we have dropped our own standards and expectations for ourselves. And in turn, that has impacted the workforce. And you have these kids who are, and look, this is not all of them. So let's be clear, not all millennials are
Right.
like
Right.
this, right? But this
Sure.
happens, and a lot of adults are like this too.
Yeah.
And it's like, okay, cool. It is your responsibility as the organization's leadership to put in practice both standards and expectations around a company culture that's going to push you forward in the economy, in which everyone has to perform at a high level. And when you have a single person dragging you down, I can't remember who said this, and I wish I could. It just literally skipped my mind as I was about to say it. But you see a lot of successful businesses fire their bottom 30% of their employees every year.
Mm-hmm.
That makes a competitive culture. We need to compete as humans in a healthy way, not in
Right.
a Wolf of Wall Street way. Like, we've
Right.
all seen
Right.
that movie, like that's crazy.
Mm-hmm.
But like you have to be able to put on your hypothetical armor and war paint and show up and go for it. Because if
Mm.
you work for me, I'm not expecting you to work harder for me. I know that my average employee is only contributing 25% of what I'm capable of contributing. I'm fine with that. That's every business I've ever run, every company I've ever been a part of. But I
Yeah.
expect you to go knock that 25% out of the water. And if
Yeah.
you're unwilling to do that, and you feel like you're owed something, you're not going to fit. And that's a thing that people have to understand. Even when you're changing careers, you're not owed anything.
Mm-hmm.
Show up and prove it. Be so good they can't ignore you.
Mm. Yeah, it's interesting. I like it that you talk about like expectations on culture in organization. I think that's, and I think a lot of leaders today are not sure even sometimes how to manage all of that with all the new generations. I see that even if they have a culture, it's almost they have to adjust this new culture. And personally, I'm Russian, obviously, and so I'm like as direct as they come. Like there's no like I don't sugarcoat. I don't usually sugarcoat as a person, and
Yep.
so I struggle with like, okay, how do I break it down to this Gen Z in a way that they're not gonna go home and like be sad about it for 3 days. So, but
Well, and
anyways,
even if they are, it's not your responsibility.
yeah,
And
yeah,
and you have
definitely,
a lot of leaders who are afraid to get canceled. But
yeah,
it's like, okay, cool. I get that. What is the offense? Right?
right,
What is the offense? And a lot of people, they will bend so that public scrutiny doesn't come towards them. But it's to me, that's asinine because part of being an entrepreneur or a leader is the ability for you to lead.
mm,
What are you do? You are not a leader if you are bending. It's like if you've ever seen the movie Braveheart, like
hmm,
William Wallace, if he bends the knee, doesn't set the pace for the things to happen to create change in the world, right? And it's like people are so afraid of that little bit of pain that comes along with standing your ground, and
right,
it's you can't do that.
mm,
Right? I mean,
yeah,
I'm 6'4", covered in tattoo, gold nose ring in my face. Corporate companies will call me and, hey, will you come speak about leadership? Yeah, of course I would. I'd love to. You need to
yeah,
wear a suit. Absolutely not.
yeah,
No.
right,
You need to stand towards your values, and
mm.
you will find people in alignment with you, and those who are not, let them go.
Right, facts. Yeah, yeah. Find your tribe, as they say. Listen, I'm mindful of your time, and I could speak with you for hours, and I think there's so much to unravel. But before I ask you my last question, where can people find you? Where's the best place to kind of check out some of the work that you're doing?
Yeah, and thanks for having me. This is fun. I love talking about business. It's like literally my favorite thing to do. I'm everywhere on social at Michael Unbroken, and we have the Think Unbroken podcast. Wherever you listen to podcasts, just search Think Unbroken.
And the last question for you is, what is one question you wish people would ask themselves more often?
It's a great question. I don't know because I can't think for other people, but I'll say the question that probably profoundly changed my life forever was, what are you willing to do to have the life that you want to have? And the answer for me was no excuses, just results.
Mm,
And that's the only reason I'm here today. And so I think people really should contemplate asking themselves, what are they truly, and I mean truly willing to do to have the life that they want?
mm. That's beautiful. I admire the work you do. I've been following you for some time, and we met at Podcast Moon. I said I'm gonna talk to him. I want to talk to him on my podcast. I'm so happy we made it happen. Thank you for your time.
Of course, my friend.